Game week 32 is proving to be one of the toughest captain selections of the season so far. So in this video, I'm going to reveal the best option for your teams, as that could be the difference between having a great week and a terrible week. I'm also going to be revealing my game week 32 team, as well as discussing those hot topics. So as always, make sure you do smash a like, hit that subscribe button. Without further ado, let's get into today's video. First up, I need to talk about game week 31, because if Carlsberg done FPL nights, it would have been last night. It was an absolute epic with that Chelsea game. I spoke about in yesterday's video how I needed the most unlikely situation where Chelsea win and Garnacho gets a haul, because I am a Chelsea fan. And lo and behold, a 14-pointer for Garnacho, a haul for Cole Palmer, and importantly, a Chelsea victory. It was the absolute peak of the season so far, and it ended up being a big red arrow to a fantastic green arrow to 59k. You can see the points totals here. 49 points plus the 21 that's coming off my bench equaled 70, which lessens the blow of me selling the hat-trick from Phil Foden, obviously. So ended up being a great game week. Garnacho saving my week. And my plans are pretty clear on what I'm doing into game week 32. So let's get into all of that alongside captaincy and the things that you need to know going into this week. So as always, I'd like to run through a few notes going into the upcoming game week. And of course, if I've missed anything or you know of anything, please do let me know in the comments. It'd be great to share it with the rest of the group. But I've got 8 things here that I think are kind of relevant. So first up, the Saka injury update is actually pretty essential right now. It was quite a surprise for him to be out of the squad completely in game week 31. My assumption is that Arteta just thought he could win the game without Saka, but I am hoping that we do get an update today, so I wouldn't be selling him. I'm seeing currently Saka as the 3rd most sold player going into game week 32, which blows my mind. Do not be that person, because I am pretty confident we'll get an update that he's available. And remember, he doubles in game week 34, and he's the only real Arsenal attacker that I feel confident about owning in that game week. So do not be selling Saka until we get those updates. Next up, we're getting to the stage of the season where we need to start confirming your chip strategy. For me, it's pretty clear. I have a wildcard and a bench boost available, and I'll be wildcarding in game week 34 and bench boosting in the upcoming double 37, which means that I'll be dead-ending my team into game week 34, so I can start prioritizing those players now. And that's the only real reason why I think you need to start confirming your chip strategy, because if you don't have a clear picture in your mind, things like dead-ending into game week 34 is not going to be an option for you until you decide when to use those chips. Number 3, Enquiries has been the talk of the town right now after some incredible performances, and he's still an unbelievable option. The only thing we do need to remember is that the return of Cunha, Hwang, Sarabia, we're not going to see Enquiries playing as basically a left-sided forward that we've seen in the last few weeks. He will revert back to a left-back or a left wing-back. He is still an incredible option, but he won't be popping up in those forward roles in the upcoming weeks as long as Cunha returns to that Wolves team. Just a little bit of a heads up there. Number 4, Man City, the early kickoff. And we are going to get some team news. There's no denying it whatsoever. A lot of content creators, including myself, will be online before the deadline. And we usually get something. That's going to include things like Erling Haaland, whether he does return back to the team. Could Phil Foden potentially get benched? I doubt it, but that's going to be some important information for managers and maybe a few other players. So hold your horses on Man City right now. I do think we will get some early news. Number 5, keep your eyes on Lewis Hall. We saw Dan Burn play as centre-back. Trippier's ruled out. Livramento's ruled out. I think we could see a bit of game time from Lewis Hall at left-back. He's only 4.2 million. Newcastle's fixtures long-term are fantastic. And Hall, importantly, is really good on the bonus point. So if you're looking for a cheap enabler, maybe you're free hitting in game week 34, I do like Lewis Hall as a long-term option, but of course there is a slight risk of rotation from Trippier or Livramento later down the line. Number 5, we spoke about Wolves. Cunha returning in game week 32 is really important. We think he will take up the mantle of penalties, and with a double in game week 34 and decent fixtures beforehand, I really like him as a bit of a punt if you were looking for a forward in your team. Number 7, Man United continue their ridiculous trend of conceding shots like you wouldn't imagine. 28 shots conceded against Chelsea, and only Man United could lose that game in injury time, being 3-2 up. Liverpool up next. Do not be ruling out the likes of Mo Salah, Darwin Núñez in this game. This is a fantastic fixture for Liverpool, and importantly, they are out for blood after Man United knocked them out of the FA Cup. So Man United versus Liverpool could have the makings of another epic in this title charge. And last up, number 8. Game week 38 captaincy is, I would argue, one of the toughest of the season, and that's why I've said stay tuned, as we're going to touch on that next. I think this could be the biggest swing of the season so far, with people like Palmer away against Sheffield United, Haaland away against Palace, Son at home against Forest, and Mo Salah in that Man United game. There are some incredible options, so we are going to touch on that right now. Okay, first up, I would argue possibly two of the most popular picks going into game week 32 are going to include Cole Palmer and Mo Salah. So first up, Cole Palmer away against Sheffield United. He is basically Chelsea. He is carrying them each and every game. One would argue that he's getting a little bit lucky with the penalties that he's been getting in each game, and he had another 2 against Man United. I get it, but that's why people like Mo Salah, Haaland are fantastic FPL options, because not only are they great, but they also have penalty responsibilities, and that's such an important factor when we are looking at it in terms of FPL options. Now, he plays against Sheffield United this weekend, and off the back of a hat-trick, I think the short-term bias is going to play a factor here, and a lot of managers are going to captain Cole Palmer going into this week, and realistically with the fixture, you cannot argue it at all. Sheffield United at home have just been somewhat of a disaster. You can see here 2.23 expected goals conceded per 90 minutes at home. Sheffield United actually perform better away from home than actually at their home, and if they are to continue these sorts of numbers, Chelsea are a very unpredictable team, and I wouldn't be surprised if they rocked up against Sheffield United and struggled. But Sheffield United, regardless, are going to give Chelsea chances. And Cole Palmer offers you guaranteed game time on penalties. And look at this here, 7 goals and 4 assists in his last 7 league matches. If Chelsea are going to do stuff against Sheffield United, then it is going to be Cole Palmer who steps up. So I have no arguments whatsoever if people want to go with Cole Palmer. And being highly owned at a lot of people's effective ownership, he is probably going to be 150% owned, I do think, at some point. So just be cautious. Cole Palmer is going to be really painful to your rank if you don't captain him. But I still think there are some incredible options outside of him. One of those includes Mo Salah away against Man United. I've spoken about the chances that they concede against pretty much every single team in the league. Man United, 22.5 shots per game in the last 10 matches conceded, which is just ridiculous. It's the worst in the league. And we've now seen Varane go down injured. We've seen Johnny Evans come on and then go back off the field. Yes, they do have a few players returning, the likes of Mason Mount, but this isn't going to help them defensively. And if anybody watched the game last night, Casemiro runs with cement in his boots. The guy cannot run anymore, and it's relying so much on Kobe Mainoo to cover so much ground, which just isn't part of his game. So I think Liverpool could run all over Man United in this game. And importantly as well, Mo Salah is going into this fixture with a little bit of doubt. Went off early against Sheffield United, and naturally with a short-term bias, I think a lot of us are going to think, oh, Mo Salah going off early, is that good or bad? I think it's absolutely fine. There's no world where Mo Salah doesn't start against Man United. I just think it was a case where it was a low block against Sheffield United, and Harvey Elliott offers some opportunities to open up that defence. I do think Mo Salah is a fantastic option this game week, and he is currently on my radar as a bit of a differential. I think he could be one of the lowest owned going into this week, but honestly, I think he could be one of the best options against Man United. So let's look at the next two, and then we'll come to some sort of conclusion on the best pick. So the other two probably highly owned options are going to include Son and Haaland, and these are the really tasty ones I feel going into this game week. Son at home against Nottingham Forest. Now, again, short-term bias, Son blanking in game week 31. A few managers might be thinking, I can't trust this guy, but look, only 35% owned, so he is going to be the differential captain of the bunch, and he's the only one with an actual home game. Now, the big risk about him is there a chance of him being pushed out to the left wing with Spurs' problems in attacking areas right now? Maybe Richarlison plays as the forward and Son goes off to the left wing. And I think naturally we have spoken about if Son plays on the left wing, it diminishes him a little bit as an attacking option. And that's my one doubt about Son going into this week. Does he play as a forward or does he play as a left winger? Because on paper, I think this is a brilliant fixture for Spurs. And I think Son is going to get really overlooked. And with the home game and Spurs really need to bounce back with a victory, I think he's brilliant as a pick. Now, the other one is going to be Erling Haaland away against Crystal Palace. Talk about short-term bias. He is blanked in the last 2 games. Now, nobody talks about the fact that they played some of the 2 of the toughest games of the season against Arsenal and Liverpool. So we can give him a little bit of leeway. But Man City as a team are a joke, in particular away from home. 2.3 XG per 90 away from home. And they're playing against a Crystal Palace team who, yes, are under new management, but I wouldn't say they're necessarily watertight defensively. and are unattainable to beat. I think it's a really good fixture for Man City. The only problem is Haaland just isn't hitting the levels of last season. He's only had one double-digit return since game week 13, which really surprised me when I looked at that. Now we'll take a look at the poll. Again, this is a small sample size, so don't read too much into it. But Palmer at 57% captaincy, I think that is going to probably be quite close to what it will be. 17% for Son, 16% for Salah, and only 9% for Erling Haaland. And when I look at these polls and think to myself, Haaland, I fully expect to come back into this team. Yes, it is a lunchtime kickoff, but we are going to get some early team leaks, so we will get confirmation whether Haaland starts or not. And I just feel like looking at the underlying numbers of Man City away from home, this is a brilliant opportunity to maybe go against the grain and captain who is one of the best goal scorers in the league. So right now, all of these options are incredible picks. But I feel like I want to go for Haaland away against Crystal Palace with these underlying numbers. Even though Haaland has been a bit of a problem over the last few weeks, as long as he's confirmed fit and raring to go, I feel like the captaincy is on him. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Okay, so team reveal time and kicking things off with the goalkeeper and defenders. Goalkeeper is just a disaster for my team, but I don't have the funds available. Only 0.2 million in the bank. Dubravka to any other option just doesn't really make a lot of sense. Henderson at Crystal Palace could be a consideration, but with a double in game week 34, that's the only real reason I would want to bring him in. And I feel like it's a real waste of a transfer when they have two incredibly tough fixtures coming up. So Dubravka is going to stay between the sticks. Am I expecting a clean sheet against Fulham? Absolutely not. It is probably the most confident I am about him conceded of the whole season. I'm fully expecting Fulham to bounce back in this game. Looking at the defenders, double Arsenal defence usually fills me with a lot of confidence, but I don't feel that against Brighton. I always feel like Brighton have the capability of scoring. However, Zabanye and Taylor as my other two options, I think both of those will concede as well. So I'm going to roll out the double Arsenal defence and just hope they put up a real confident display and keep them at bay. The other one's going to be Pedro Porro. I've spoken about how frustrating of an option he has been. He has just been blanking week in, week out, and it's not like he's cheap. However, we need to look at the times to sell players. And at home against Nottingham Forest, I think it does offer, not going to say clean sheet potential, but attacking potential for him. I think making a transfer for the sake of the transfer is a perfect example here. I could sell Pedro Porro for an 8 Nori, but is the fixture better than this one? I would say it's pretty on par. And does Pedro Porro offer some potential? He does. So for that very reason, I just don't feel like selling Pedro Porro this week makes any sense. So I'm going to roll out this goalkeeper and defence combo. Moving into the midfielders, and I should have flagged Saka because of course he hasn't been confirmed fit for the week, but this is all going to depend on Bukayo Saka. If we were to get information that he is actually injured and could be a doubt for the next few weeks, then I would sell Bukayo Saka 100%. And I probably would go for a double game week 34 player. Probably go to an Odegaard, for example, and keep some investment in the Arsenal team. But that is totally dependent on Arteta. I expect Saka to be fit. And because of that reason, I'm just expecting to keep my midfield the exact same as what has previously been. Benching Garnacho, he could do well against Liverpool, absolutely, but I just can't really justify starting him over any of the other midfielders or forwards in my team. Salah away against Man United, I think, is a brilliant option. I know he blanked last game week, but I think he is great. Son at home against Forest, another fantastic pick. And Cole Palmer. All of these options are captaincy picks in themselves. And because of that reason, there is no need for me to make a transfer in this midfield. So it kind of picks itself. Moving into the forwards, and you can see at the bottom of your screen, my game week transfer is simply going to be rolling my transfer. Unless we get any news between now and the end of the day about some injury updates, I am really happy putting out this team. Erling Haaland away against Crystal Palace, I've spoken about, with City in general being so good away from home. I have no problems with him in this fixture. Darwin Núñez away against Man United. Could we see Cody Gakpo play? Potentially, but I'll be very surprised as well. So even though I don't love Darwin, I really don't like owning him. I thought I did. I've got him. I hate it. So he is going to stay just because he doubles in game week 34. But with the return of Diogo Jota waiting in the wings, it could put some doubts on me having him for that physical double game week 34. And Dominic Solanke away against Luton. Don't really think it's actually an incredible fixture. I think it's good. I think Solanke definitely could return, but I don't expect a huge return from him. That's why I'm not considering him as a captaincy option, but he could be a good differential. So you can see here, looking at my starting 11 and even the bench options, there's just no need for me to make a transfer this week. That's why I will be rolling let's just touch on my captaincy and then we'll wrap up the video. So in terms of captaincy, I honestly feel like I probably own 4 of the best picks in Salah, Son, Palmer and Erling Haaland. And after going through each player, I just feel there's an opportunity to go back to Erling Haaland this week. Away from home against Crystal Palace, I know it's the lunchtime kickoff, and I know it will be incredibly painful if he does blank with all the other games still to play. But if he does get confirmation that he's back in that team, I just feel like it is a great opportunity. Now, I have the vice captaincy on Son. I just feel like, again, with his ownership being at 35%, and I'm really trying to find those slight opportunities to go against the grain, I think he would easily default as my captain, getting closer to the deadline at home against Nottingham Forest. My big issue is, does he return to the left wing? And that slightly diminishes him as an FPL option. So look, this is currently at the time recorded, but because all 4 are such unbelievable options, there is a chance I might swing in a different direction. So my advice is, make sure you are subscribed. I will be on a deadline live leading up until that game week 32 deadline. Yes, guys, okay, that's going to wrap up today's Game Week 32 team selection video. I really hope it's provided some value. As always, if you are asking any questions, get them in the video. I will make sure I answer them between now and the deadline. Make sure you did drop a like, smash the subscribe button. I will see you in tomorrow's deadline live stream. Have an amazing evening. Take care. Cheers.